Hello, dear perceptive souls. This is Bevan. I am a coach and mentor for intuitive empaths, conscious leaders, and light workers. So welcome to your collective energy reading. I'm so pleased to see you. Of course, these readings take place at a certain day and time, but they are universal archetypes. So I go within to meditation, or when I'm first awakening, I draw a variety of tarot and oracle cards and really tap into what is the story that's wanting to emerge now. How is this showing up in my own life? How is this being mirrored out in society? And what are we facing now? What are some of the lessons that we're facing? This was such an interesting story. I can't wait to share it with you. One of my favorite ancient myths to be able to share with you today. There's some information in the description box below about my private community, 1 Million Empaths. It's an online global sanctuary, a beautiful space to come and connect with other like-minded souls, empathic, intuitive leaders and teachers and healers and people who are serving all over our planet. So if you're looking for that kind of a connection, finding your tribe, we'd love to have you join us. And there's some other information about who I am and how I serve. So let's get into the reading today. And I think that what I will do is allow the theme to emerge. Sometimes I have a very clear word or phrase at the very beginning, but I just want this to kind of unfold and to see what happens here. So I'm really excited. And as I laid out all the cards and I see this story, I'm reminded of the ancient myth of Hades and Persephone and Demeter. And so I'm going to share that to the best of my ability with you. So the god Hades, who is the god of the underworld, Zeus's brother, actually saw this young maiden walking through the forest and fell in love with her. And this was Persephone. She was this beautiful, beautiful young maiden. She was the daughter of Demeter, who is the goddess of fertility and harvest and grain and vitality and all of those things. And so, of course, Persephone was beautiful. And in that time, and forgive, this is sort of a patriarchal story, as many of them are, but he decided he wanted her for his wife. And he just took her into the underworld. So here is the Two of Cups, right? The Lover's card. And it really doesn't say much about Persephone, whether she actually wanted to go down into the underworld with Hades. I think she was kind of upset about that, as you would be if you didn't feel like you had a choice. And basically he took her into this underground space. So she's used to being up in the forest and the nature and the sunlight, and takes him down. He takes her down into the underworld. And the Two of Cups, could be a beautiful thing. It's usually called the Lover's card. So it could be mutual love and romance and attraction, or it could be codependency, right? Where one person needs something else in order to feel complete. And really where this is coming up for us collectively is a lot of people, and I can really sense into this right now, are looking at, so what do I need that makes me complete in my life? Is that a particular job with a particular employer? One of the things that came up for me the other day is, as the government sort of rolls out, at least in the United States and probably other governments as well, starts to roll out these stimulus packages and give money, to its citizens. What is that to receive that? And am I okay with that? How do I feel about that? Do I feel like I'm entitled to that? So there's just a lot of things that we're exploring right now in relation to codependency. But this story of Hades taking Persephone down into the underworld then leads us into this. This is the lower world card. And in the shamanic tradition, the lower world, well, some people could think that it seems a little scary, and maybe it kind of is a little scary. It is the realm of our ancestors. Could be our ancestors who are supportive and nurturing, and we'll see them show up here in just a little bit. It could also be a place where we explore multi-generational patterning, right? Whether that's codependency, whether that's empath, narcissist, whether that's the same kind of relationship things, addiction, And it really gets down into that root chakra and that sacral chakra where we feel our deep emotions. You can see the water is just running. There's not a lot of light down there. It's the darkness, right? And we're just trying to navigate our way. We're kind of feeling and holding and grabbing, and things are slimy, and maybe something's flying out of there. And this is where we go when it's time to really face our fears. When it's time to really stand and look at our deep emotions. When it's time to start doing some of that healing work, we have to go into this lower world. We might be Persephone and go, I just want to skip through the forest. And who doesn't, right? Who doesn't want to just be out there in the sunshine? But sometimes in our life, we kind of go through this valley of the shadow of death, or the dark night of the soul, or whatever you want to call it. And we need to go down in here, and we need to see what's there. And what I've learned in my own life is it's just better to face it. It's just better to feel the feelings. It's just better to deal with the thoughts that are coming up, regardless of what they are, rather than trying to suppress this. Because when we suppress this lower world, this is when things don't work out so well for us. This is when we get into codependency in relationships, or within government systems, or with the corporate systems. A lot of people right now are going, I really like working from home. Maybe I don't want to go back to my corporate job. Maybe I feel like I thought there was all this security with my 401k and my benefits plan and my, weekly or biweekly salary. And now, maybe there's actually not. And so we're collectively and individually really diving into the lower world now. And this is where Hades took Persephone, so you can imagine for her, that was a huge shock. And it is, for so many people, is a huge shock to believe that our economic system could just go and crumble down so quickly, and our healthcare system could crumble down so quickly. And where's the safety net? Where's the safety net? And the next card that came up was the mother, right? So here's Demeter. And when her daughter was taken, as most mothers would be, she was distraught, angry, scared, fearful, didn't think she would ever see her again. She raged and cried, and then ended up going to Zeus, who was the head of the gods, and said, look, I need you to get her back. It's really important. I can't do without her. And so he went to Hades, who was his brother. And so here he is. he's got Demeter on one side and Hades on the other. He's like, crap, I'm kind of stuck in between. But the deal that he made is that Persephone would stay in the underworld for 6 months of the year, and then she would come out for the other 6 months of the year. And of course, Demeter wasn't really happy about that, but it was better than not seeing her daughter at all. So during those times in autumn and into winter, when Persephone was in the lower world with Hades, Demeter would actually stop providing fertility to the crops, to the land, would stop providing nutrients, would stop providing water and all of the things that needed to be fertile. And so this is when we come into the harvest, right? We gather what's already been given from the earth, from nature, and we start to go within. We go within for the winter, and it's kind of dark and gray, and you can see that, Demeter was empathic, and she suffered with a little bit of depression. So she kind of went into this state. Some people call it seasonal affectiveness disorder. Like, if it's one of the reasons I moved to Texas, because there's so much sunlight here, because I lived in other places where it would just be gray for months. And I was like, I can't do that any longer. But this is where our ancient ancestors began to start going, why are there seasons? And maybe this is a cool story to initiate that. And then what would happen is the spring would come, and Persephone would be released from the underworld, and she would come up and she would spend the spring and the summer with her mother, and her mother would be flourishing and happy, and everything would begin to grow and sprout. And you see here, this is the two of earth, right? And so Persephone sometimes was under the earth part of the time, balancing, and part of the time was above the earth, and you can see there's some heart activation here as she comes in, and a lot of third eye knowing. So when we start to look at what's going on in our world currently, we realize, yeah, we're going to have some of those moments where we go down into the lower world. Yesterday was like that for me. I was very emotional. It was very intense. I was really tired. I could barely work. today I feel really good. So it's like, okay, some days it's one and some days it's the other. I don't know if it's my own energy, my own search down in and my own journeying into that lower world nature. But we're all doing this balancing right now because there isn't a lot of stability and we don't know quite what that new cycle will look like. We were used to the spring and the summer being this era of growth and new possibilities, and now all of a sudden everything is slowed down. So we're kind of like out of that rhythm, right? And I know some people who might watch this would be in the southern hemisphere, so for them this would kind of make sense. But for most of us who live in the northern hemisphere, we were getting ramped up. We were getting ready. We were getting ready to plant and grow seeds and do things, and then everything went. And so we're like, how do I balance this? How do I stay in this place where I'm centered and grounded, particularly as an empath? How do I manage those times when I go down into that lower world? How do I not spiral down into that state of depression and fear and allow that to take over me? How do I come back up out of that? It's okay to go down there and look at what's real. As I said, like when I suppressed things in the past, when I suppress my voice, when I suppress my emotions or my thoughts, they're still there. It's like energy just trying to get out, and it's going to leak out one way or another. And in my own case, it actually leaked out through my physical body and created pain and created illness. And so this is an opportunity for us to get real with ourselves and to face. But we are a little bit out of balance right now, for sure. And then there's sort of the second half of the reading. So that's really the mythology behind it. And it's talking about cycles, and it's talking about these two contrasting experiences where we have something that's so lush and so fertile, whether we're talking about the economy, whether we're talking about our relationships with other people, whether we're talking about in our health and our vitality. And then there's this area where it's like, okay, everything's gray and it's dying back, right? And then we come into this this death and rebirth card, right? It's the 8, right? That infinity symbol that can be given, receiving, death and rebirth. And you see the snake, it's really challenging to see, but inside here, there you go, it's a good, better. You can see that there's a small infant, right? There's something getting ready to hatch. The snake is the symbol of transformation, of shedding our old skin. And we can see here's the ancestor spirit. So we have a little bit of the lower world here. This would probably be sort of the middle world. Like the middle world is our 3-dimensional aspect. And right now we're in this gestation phase, right? We're just newbies to this. We don't even understand what is happening right now. We don't understand what the new normal will be. And so the snake is just nurturing and holding that, warming the egg, if you will, and getting us into a place where, we'll eventually hatch, but we just haven't hatched yet. And there's 3 different ancestors here, 3 different pathways, 3 different choices, 3 different skulls, 3 different thought patterns, right, going through. And then what came out next was, ironically, the choice card, right? So when we begin to hatch, and even before we begin to hatch, when we're in that gestation, when we're in the egg, when we're in that womb, and we're just kind of in our womb here at home, right? We're going, okay, I'm nurturing myself. I'm eating probably more than I need to be. I might be binge watching things. I might be creating, I might be drawing or painting, or I've seen so much writing and beautiful artwork coming out online. And so we know in the future there will be choices. This card is a little bit difficult to see here, but we actually have 3 doors. There's 1, 2, 3. There's someone who's releasing all of that emotion we talked about. Here's the snake energy coming in again, but now the snake, has that lit torch. So before that was just sort of glowing from within, and now that is a bright flame. It's actually coming out. And it kind of reminds us of the caduceus, which is the health symbol that's been coming out over and over and over in these readings recently. And here's the apple again. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. We have all of this sword energy over here, which is mental energy. And then on the back side, it's hard to see, but on the back side, there's like one more face. There's a white face, and then there's like this darker shadow face, right? And so we have these doors, and we can go through any of these pathways. you know, and it could lead us to different directions. So where are we going to go? Are we going to try to recreate everything that we've already just finished, that we've already just had? Are we going to try to just get back to work and get back to productivity and get back to everything that we just did? Are we going to go a completely different direction? What might that look like? What happens if, you know, if we go into a direction that doesn't work for us again, you know? And so there's a lot of choices here. We have on an individual and a collective level. And right now we're just gestating because we don't even know. We don't even know. We don't even know what these choices are. We can't even really yet, I think, see these doors. I was on a call earlier with a couple of colleagues who are amazing spiritual leaders. And I said, so what do you think is next? And they're like, your guess is as good as mine. And this is really where we are, because it's dark and we can't really see. There's a little bit of light back here. So we know that something's being activated. We know that there's possibility and there's choices that we have to make. But how do we do that? How do we make those choices? How do we make them on an individual level? What will we create? What kind of world will we create in this middle world here as we start to rise up out of that lower world? And that lower world really, like I said, it's very much about survival. It's really about getting our basic needs met. It's about belonging. It's about, you know, eating and having shelter and belonging to a community and feeling connected. And then as we start to lift up and we start to see that we're getting ready to transform and we've been in this sort of cocooned state, but we haven't yet shed our skin and we can't really see what the doorways are. I love this card. It's one of my favorites, and it is the council, right? The council. Whether you call this your ancestor spirits, whether you believe that these are your inner personas, your wise inner being. I'm going to get on an Abraham Hicks call in a little bit. This is a master number, and when we tap in to this collective web of consciousness, these beautiful spirit guides, angels, who, whatever you call them, they're like, we're here with you. Humanity is not going through this on their own. They are here, nurturing us, spreading this light. Matter of fact, if you just get quiet for a moment and you go within, you can begin to feel their vibrations surrounding you. And for those who aren't used to that kind of energy, might feel a little scary, might feel more like this, like the lower world, like, oh my gosh, is there going to be like something really out to get me coming? But no, there's not. It's just this, right? This beautiful activated heart energy. Lots of activation up here, the higher self, right? And so this is, you know, before we make these choices, we tap into the council and we see what's there for us. And the final card is owning that part of ourselves that is also a wise one. And here's the seer, right? The seer, he or she has the rattle, which takes us on that shamanic journey. It's coming into the 9 energy here. The 9 energy bringing us towards that completion of a cycle, beginning to look out into the world, beginning to look beyond the world, nurturing that part of ourselves that's visionary, that follows our knowing. And I just wanted to read a brief piece of the interpretation here. So this is the invitation for your seer archetype. The seer invites you to trust your intuition and follow it as it leads you forward. You may feel lost when it appears that your hunch is taking you in circles or even through a maze, but the hidden realms do not follow the rules of a 2-dimensional map. Trust your gut and allow your perception of your circumstances to widen, to include the nuances and subtle cues that you normally miss if you take things at face value. The seer has gifted you with his magic. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. Your vision is clear. And what I'll say about this two-dimensional path is that so much of our world has been kind of on that two-dimensional path. It's like, okay, when I do business, I'm going to set a goal. Here's my goal. And here's where I'm starting from. And I'm going to build in all these systems and processes, and I'm going to go do until I achieve this, right? However, our world doesn't operate that way any longer, and it hasn't for a really long time, although we've been trying to catch up with it. Our world is really multidimensional at this point and very complex. So we have a goal, and there are, you know, hundreds of other institutions and entities and people and all these things that are intersecting with this goal. And here's us, and our path kind of goes like this and 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 maybe I get here, or maybe I realize I didn't want that in the first place, or maybe that really wasn't meant to be. And because we're faced with so many choices, but we've forgotten how to listen, to tap into our guides, and to tap into the part of ourselves that is very, very tuned in and knows, has a knowing, right? And that allows us to come into this balance point, right? Where Persephone is not just the victim of Hades' patriarchy, right? She actually takes on her own power. She actually makes the choices that are right for her. She actually decides how much, what I'm going to juggle, what am I going to take, what am I going to let drop. There's an enormous amount of higher self-activation here. And it's also very grounded. So she is bridging being rooted into the earth, rooted into that lower world, not fearful of going in there and looking and seeing when we get activated by our survival mechanisms, but also raising up and receiving of that higher knowledge. And here in this middle world, this middle realm, she is juggling all of that masterfully because she's allowed herself to come into the seer energy. And the seer energy requires us to get quiet, to not try to hustle, to not try to get back to normal. It requires us to make a different choice this time, to release any grief that you may have been feeling about what you've lost, about what you perceive that you've lost, to recognize that you are incubating now, right? You're just that little infant self. Look at the light shining out from that. How powerful is that, right? And you are sitting cradled by all of your ancestors. Every single one of them who've passed on to the other side are there with you, holding you, nurturing you. The counsel is there. And this beautiful snake energy is saying, okay, it's time for you to expand. It's time for you to shed that old skin. And it's time for us to shed that old skin of the old mentalities, the old kind of era of business and economics and community, and to decide, like, what do we want now, right? What do we want now? Because that mothering can be really overbearing, and living our lives through others, whether that's binge watching TV or, you know, and I gave up TV about 5 years ago because I said I would rather actually have a life than watch other people have a life. Now, I'm not saying I don't watch any shows, because I do, but, you know, are we living through others? Are we living through our job and our employer? Are we living through our partner? Are we living through our children? Are we actually taking on and stepping into that life that's meant for us, right? And when we get very, very clear and centered in our heart, we tap in and we allow ourselves to be held by the counsel. We can see what's there for us. So I hope you enjoyed this, my friends. Really, this is about trusting yourself. There it is. There's there's the topic. There's the phrase. There's the collective energy that we're sensing. Trusting yourself. Yeah, trust yourself if you need to go down in that lower world for a few minutes or a day or a couple of days and just wallow around in there a little bit and get pissed off and cry and do whatever you need to do, and then go, okay, that little dark night is done. Coming back up, I'm going to tune in. I'm going to allow myself to be held. I'm going to get quiet. I'm going to reinvent myself. I'm going to allow this gestation period to marinate me as long as it needs to until I'm ready. And I'm going to hatch out and I'm going to make inspired, intuitive, connected choices about my life and where I'm going. And the more of us that do this, the more our entire world changes, right? So that we return back to this card as the final, which is love that is unconditional, love that is connected, love for all of each other, for humanity, for our earth. It's not codependent, it's interdependent. And these are very different kind of energy when we transmute that energy. And we have to become this inside of ourselves first. We have to become balanced inside here, centered, grounded, elevated, making decisions. I'm not trying to juggle everything, just a few things, right? Just a few things that we can do really well. And this is one of those things that I'm working on. This is one of the things that I'm choosing, is to come on and do these messages. So if you feel that this resonated with you, I do have a way that you can support me, and I accept love offerings for that. And again, you can get connected with me. Please like and subscribe. This helps my channel to grow and to spread these love messages to others who need to hear it. And I just honor whoever you are, from whatever part of the world that you are, your bright light shining out, serving, giving, receiving, gestating, making choices, becoming who you really are. Namaste.